everyone, my name is Mariana, or in Ukrainian, Mariana, and this is my channel, Three Peaks Classroom. In today's episode, I want to talk to you all about the history, tradition, and the symbolism behind a pysanka. So what is a pysanka? A pysanka is actually one specific type of Ukrainian Easter egg that's decorated using very specific traditional symbols and traditional colors using wax. We're actually going to talk about all the specific colors and symbols that are used on a pysanka later in the episode as well. There are actually many different types of traditional Easter eggs that Ukrainians make around Easter time. For example, you can have a traditional krashanka. A krashanka comes from the Ukrainian word krasate, which means to decorate. And krashanke were basically just colored with one single color, and they were put inside a traditional Easter basket for church blessings, and they were used to brighten up or decorate an Easter basket. Another type of Ukrainian Easter egg that Ukrainians made was called a Dryapanka, and that comes from the Ukrainian word dryapate, which means to scratch. And so I don't have any with me because I don't know how to make those ones, but a Dryapanka is basically you dye an egg in a specific color, and then you take something sharp and you scratch or you etch symbols and drawings all around the egg, and that's called the Dryapanka. Another type of traditional Easter egg that Ukrainians make at Easter time is called Akrapanka. Akrapanka is very fun. Akrapanka comes from the Ukrainian word krapka, which means dots. So Akrapanka is just an Easter egg that's made with very different colored dots. And of course, we have the traditional pysanka. Now, a pysanka comes from the Ukrainian word pisate, which means to write. And so the way that traditional pysanka were made were by writing or drawing on an egg with a special kind of a tool. And that's right here. This is called a stylus, or in Ukrainian, it's called a kistka. And you can look inside, there's a hole here, and that's where you would put the wax, and you would melt the wax, and it would come out this tiny little bottom right here. And you would use that wax and you would draw all over your pysanka, all over your egg to make a pysanka. Now, in the next episode, I'm actually going to show you how to make a traditional Easter egg, a pysanka, from start to finish using the traditional method. Since eggs are very fragile and biodegradable, we don't know when the very first pysanka was made or when the first pysanky were made in Ukraine. We only have fragments left of eggshells from those first pysanky, but we can safely say that pysanky, or the tradition of making pysanky, has been around in Ukraine for over 2,000 years. And the way that we know that is because of some of the symbols that were used on those traditional eggs were ancient symbols used in ancient times. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit more specifically about the colors on pysanky and the symbols that you might see on pysanky. So I want to share with you my jar of homemade pysanky that I keep in my home. Now I know there's a little bit of a glare on the side, so I'm going to do my best to hold the jar. But you can see there's so many different colors used on even just one single pysanka. Back in the olden days, you didn't have man-made colors, and so you had to use natural things from the environment outside to make natural dyes. And so you were limited in the colors that you could have. You could have yellows, you could have golds, you could have reds, browns, and blacks. Those were kind of like the traditional colors. So something that you would kind of see here is more of a traditional Ukrainian pysanka because those were the colors that were available. Now in my pysanka package that I have here, it actually explains the colors and where they would get those colors from, and then what those colors symbolize. So for example, if you had a yellow color, you would get yellow from like flower petals, and yellow would symbolize happiness, warmth, and youth. So anytime you would see yellow on a pysanka, then it would be more cheerful. In order to get a black color from nature, you would have to go and find very specific kinds of trees, like a walnut tree or an oak tree, and you would have to take the bark as well. And then from that bark, you were able to make a special dye as well. So man-made colors also have a very specific meaning as well. So for example, if you wanted green, green symbolizes spring. It symbolizes freshness. It symbolizes health. So here I have a purple pysanka. The main color here is purple. And so this one, if I would give it to somebody, it symbolizes faith, it symbolizes patience, and it symbolizes trust. Now, equally as important as the colors on a pysanka were also the designs that people used on their pysanky. On this page, I have an explanation of some of the most common symbols that you'll find on a pysanka and what they mean. So for example, if you see a ladder symbol on a pysanka, it doesn't mean a ladder, but the ladder symbolizes prayer. Do you remember the Akrapanka? This Easter egg that's made with just dots? Well, dots symbolize seeds, or if you're religious, the dots can also symbolize Mary's tears when Jesus was crucified. Well, this one has a sunflower symbol, and the sunflower is actually the national flower for Ukraine. Remember how I said that we know that pysanky are at least 2,000 years old because of ancient symbols that were found on those eggshell fragments? One of those ancient symbols was an ancient symbol for sun, or the sun god. And I have an example of that here. So if you look really closely, this star shape, the one in the white, this is an ancient symbol for the sun. Now, one of the most important symbols that you could put on a pysanka is called an eternity line or an eternity ribbon. And what that looks like is it's a single line that goes all the way around the egg and it doesn't end. You can't find the beginning and you can't find the end. So there's one that goes all the way around this way. There's also one that goes this way as well. That's a very important symbol on a Ukrainian pysanka, and I'll let you know why a little bit later. So how long would it take to make a traditional Ukrainian pysanka? Well, if you take a very close look at all of the symbols and all of the colors used, a pysanka could take up to a few hours or even days. Some people would take days to make a traditional Ukrainian pysanka based on all of the different colors and designs that you see, and it's very intricately done. So because pysanka take a long time to make, it was considered a great honor to receive a pysanka as a gift from somebody. So after they were done being blessed in a traditional Easter basket, you would go and you would pick a pysanka and you would trade it or you would gift it to a friend or a family member, and it was considered a great honor. So remember those eternity lines that I told you about? The ones that go all the way around the egg and there's no beginning or end? In Ukrainian culture, there's a belief that if an evil spirit comes into your home, they will be mesmerized by the pysanka, by the beautiful colors and the beautiful symbols. They'll be drawn to the pysanka, and because they're drawn to it, they'll actually be trapped inside of the pysanka and they'll spend eternity stuck in these eternal bands that go around and around because there's no way to get out. So a fun little fact about pysanky. And that's another reason why people like to display their pysanky in a jar or in a bowl inside their home. So I hope you liked learning a little bit about the history and the tradition and the symbolism behind a traditional Ukrainian pysanka. In the next episode, I'm going to take you with me as I make a pysanka from beginning to end. And I'm going to explain all of the colors and the symbols that I use and the process as well. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!